Appellate court has upheld references to God on U.S. currency and in the Pledge of Allegiance, rejecting arguments that they violate the Constitution. In a separate ruling, 3-0, the appeals court upheld the inscription of the national motto, "In God We Trust," on coins and currency. Both suits filed by Michael Newdow from Sacramento, an atheist who brought numerous challenges to government-sponsored religious invocations. Dr. Newdow is a doctor and attorney who founded a group called the First Atheist Church of True Science. Michael, thanks for coming on. How you doing?
I've been better, but I'm okay.
Not too happy about this decision, right?
Not at all.
Where do you think the court was wrong?
Oh, in everything. I mean, if
this is the Ninth Circuit, by the way, which is often criticized for being too liberal by conservatives.
Right. Well, it always depends on which judges you get, and we had one judge who was clearly going to be ruling against me, one judge that clearly was going to be ruling for me, and one judge who actually didn't write anything but apparently went against. And,
so you're saying you had one judge who you knew liked you, another judge who had it in for you?
Not had it in for me, no, not at all. But just whose philosophy was going to uphold the verbiage that we are protesting against.
Yeah, I'm with you. I happen to think that having God on coins actually diminishes God. We don't need it on a coin. When people tell me, oh, well, we need to have faith in this nation, seeing it on a penny doesn't make you any more faithful.
Well, it's first of all. Second of all, that whole philosophy that we need to have faith in this nation and belief in God is a religious philosophy, and the government is not allowed to abide by or help and assist in espousing that religious philosophy any more than it can espouse my religious philosophy that we need to have less God stuff.
Right. And would it be government's job to advance the philosophy of belief?
Actually, that's exactly the point of the first 10 words of our Bill of Rights. It says that government not only isn't its job, but it's forbidden from doing that. But the judges didn't find that.
Let's see. They're saying your position on this is they really make you think like to be a good American, you got to believe in God, right?
Well, I think that's the underlying belief system. And in the 1950s, that's clearly what was going on. President Eisenhower said that belief in a supreme being is the most basic expression of Americanism. You couldn't have an American form of government without belief in God. So that's what it was all about. What happened in the cases was two things. One, in the motto case, there was a case previously brought in the Ninth Circuit in 1970. And so basically the entire opinion says, look, this case was already brought and lost. You're not allowed to bring a case again. Or more accurately, judges are not allowed to overturn previous opinions. That has to be done en banc. So I will ask an en banc panel to revisit this. And I think that opinion was based on the idea the judge there said that under God and the pledge in God we trust on the coins has nothing whatsoever to do with the establishment of religion. Well, if it has nothing whatsoever to do with it, why does the Supreme Court always raise that issue when it discusses Establishment Clause claims? You never hear the Supreme Court talking about in God we trust on the coins on a highway bill or the FDA case or anything else. They only bring it up during the Establishment Clause, so it clearly has something to do with it.
The majority opinion written by Carlos B. Acknowledged that, quote, the words under God have religious significance, but they do not convert the pledge into a prayer, which is an odd, slicing there. That's really slicing it pretty thin, isn't it?
Right. That was on the pledge case, right?
Yeah, on the pledge case.
And yeah, I mean, there's nothing in the Establishment Clause that limits government's intrusions in religion to prayer. When they hung the Ten Commandments on the wall in Stone v. Graham in 1985, that wasn't prayer. When they said you couldn't teach creation science, that wasn't prayer. But I don't know, somehow the other side always makes this argument. Well, it's not prayer, so therefore it's okay.
They would also argue it's not promoting religion. Just saying the word God, they will claim, is not promoting religion. Certainly not promoting a specific religion, just because the word God is on a coin.
Well, it's not the word God. It says, in God we trust. It's a statement about the United States that, all the arguments, one of the interesting things is if you just change the words, all of the arguments would be just as, quote, applicable if you said, in Jesus we trust, all of the arguments that were made would fall in just as they did in this case, or we are one nation under Jesus. The argument is that, well, the pledge is patriotic. So then if you made one nation under Jesus, it would still be patriotic. That would be okay. How about one nation under white heritage? Would that be okay because it's still patriotic? I mean, the whole argument is so, at least to me, so ludicrous. But
Greg Katzis argued for the government. He said, I think that these two phrases encapsulate the philosophy on which the nation was founded. There's a religious aspect to saying one nation under God, but it isn't like a prayer. Again, the same thing the majority opinion said. When someone says the pledge, they're not praying to God. They're pledging allegiance to the country, the flag, and the ideals of the country. That's the argument.
Right, and he's claimed, and the Congress in 1954 claimed that one of the ideals of the country is that we believe in God. And that is clearly not one of the ideals of the country, at least if you consider the ideals of the country as being those things that are put into the Constitution, which specifically has the opposite, says you can't have religious beliefs.
What are you going to do now? Because they're saying, well, this is like the third time the appellate court has heard it. There's little chance that it'll be pushed up to a higher court.
I think that may be correct. I'll still try. You never know. There's, one of there are two basic reasons why you can ask. First thing you do is you go back to the Court of Appeals and you say to the panel, you say, I'd like you to rehear this. And then you say, if you guys won't rehear this, I'd like a rehearing en banc, where you get all the judges to participate. And there's at least some chance that will happen because, the two criteria is, one, is there a conflict between the circuits? Here, actually, there isn't a conflict between circuits. There's what's worse. There's a conflict between two panels in the same circuit. The Ninth Circuit, one panel came out and said it was okay. Another panel came out and said it was not okay. So you'd like to have all of the judges, working together to come up with one specific answer rather than have that conflict. And then the other issue is whether or not it's an issue of importance. And I will argue this is quite important, that we should be treating all religious views with equal respect.
What do you say when people say, well, you've got the first church or atheist church of true science? That is a church that is a religion. Your religion is atheism.
I say that's absolutely correct. Constitutionally, it is religion, but that's individuals. Individuals can always do what they want in terms of religion. If people want to get down on their knees and pray to Jesus or God or Mohammed or whatever else during school or whatever, they have every right to do that as long as it's not disruptive. The issue is whether or not government is doing something like this.
But is atheism really religion, or is atheism lack of religion?
Well, it depends how, the answer is always it depends. If you're defining it in constitutional terms, atheism is clearly religion, just like silence is speech. The Supreme Court has said part of your right of free speech is the right to not speak. And certainly silence is not in the vernacular of speech. But constitutionally, silence is speech. Because really when we say speech, we're not talking about speech. We're talking about expression and making, some point. And the same thing happens in religion. We're not talking about belief in God. We're talking about opinions about God. Is David Koresh God? Is Jesus God? Is there no God? All of those things are protected under the Constitution.
I know that you feel that the under God and the pledge, by the way, the pledge written by a socialist in the late 19th century to promote socialism, under God added in 1954 to promote McCarthyism, basically, or rather Americanism over communism during the McCarthy era, to prove that we're not these evil, godless commies. What the original pledge had nothing to do with God, didn't have God in it. It was written to promote socialism, as you well know. But while I understand your feeling that the pledge can be deleterious in that your daughter was forced to say it and you fought that when she was in school, told to say the pledge, but is God on a coin negative? Is that hurtful, simply having the word God on a coin?
It doesn't. It's you. Well, you can. If you were just the word God, that perhaps would be okay. It isn't just the word God. It says, "In God we Americans trust." And I mean, how about if it said, "In our white heritage we trust"?
Yeah. All right. So it's not the word God. It's the context.
It's the context.
But does anybody hurt? I don't even pay attention to it on a coin. Does anybody even care about that it's on a coin?
I know one person who cares.
You?
Yeah. And obviously a whole bunch of other people care, because when you try to get it out, they go crazy. So, the issue is what is it's, to me it's the same as separate but equal water fountains. What is really going on here? And it goes back to Plessy v. Ferguson, when Justice Harlan made in his dissent. Plessy v. Ferguson, that was the case where you said that you could have separate but equal railroad cars.
Right.
He said the real meaning of this thing, this isn't about using separate railroad cars. The real meaning is that Negro citizens are so inferior and so degraded that they can't be allowed to be riding on the railroad cars with white people. The real meaning of "In God We Trust" on the coins is to say that we are people who believe in God, and people who don't believe in God are not as good as we in the majority are, just exactly as the real meaning in Plessy v. Ferguson was that blacks aren't as good as we in the majority white people are. And that's what the issue is.
So what's your next step? step?
The next step is I have to spend a ton of time writing petitions for rehearing, and then when that goes, if that isn't successful, I have to spend a ton of time writing a petition for certiorari at the Supreme Court.
And you'll devote and dedicate your life to this for as long as it takes. I mean,
it's not to this. It's to the idea that our government, the whole beauty of America and our Constitution is it's based on this fundamental notion of equality. And, every single time we keep having to relearn this lesson. We did it with blacks, we did it with women, we did it with gays, and now hopefully we'll eventually do it with atheists and treat everybody equally, especially atheists, because that's religion, and that came long before race and gender and sexual orientation.
And you're working as your own attorney, correct? You're representing yourself?
I'm in the pledge case. I'm actually representing other people, and I also have another case right now pending in the First Circuit in New Hampshire. And that one's in the Court of Appeals there, and I'll keep going to there's 12 courts of appeals. I'll go to all of them.
Well, I appreciate your time tonight, Dr. Newdow. Thanks so much for coming on and telling us the update and the status of where things are, and we'll be following it. Thanks so much.
Thanks.